let me cover those two items first.
Great.
Because they
Yeah.
cover a whole bunch of.
Fantastic.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you fine, Deanna.
Okay, so I don't need to change anything. Everything's okay.
I'm hearing you well.
Alrighty then.
And you guys have done a lot of work on this. It's crazy.
Yeah, Adam has. Adam's done a brilliant job. He loves.
Who gets this?
He loves his toys. Only health professionals get this. Basically, MDs. We can't give those to the general public.
Right.
So can you all hear me? This is Keith.
Yeah, Keith. Good morning to
Okay,
you.
good.
I don't know if anybody. Yeah, you can hear
Good
me,
morning.
can't you?
Nice to
Yes,
have you
I
and
can hear you,
Deanna
Joe.
here.
Mm-hmm.
We're past due.
We are. Couple of little housekeeping statements, but I can do them after your intro if you want.
Okay. Well, you can do them whenever you want.
Okay, yeah, let me pop in with the housekeeping first, and
Yeah.
then you can take it over.
You
We'll
can
go from there.
introduce me. Yeah.
Yes, that'd be perfect.
You know, one of the questions is what are the non-active ingredients in Panicure? I never thought about it until I saw that question, so I did a deep dive.
I know the answer to that question.
Well, I did a deep dive this morning, and I know exactly what the non-active ingredients are, and they're all harmless.
Oh,
There
what did you find?
Hmm?
Oh, well, I'll look forward to hearing it then. And I have another. I'll be interested to hear that part then.
I've got so of the inert ingredients, there's less of them in the liquid.
Yeah, but
And
none of the ingredients. Well, first of all, they're so benign that FDA doesn't even require disclosure of them.
well, I will tell you, among circles of integrative and functional medicine specialists, they'll look at that list and go, "We absolutely know some of these things are not good for you." So it gets
Man,
it gets real dicey when you go from the conventional
I don't know.
world into the other world.
We can
Because
talk about
Yeah.
them. They're parabens, silicon dioxide, citric acid, molasses, and vegetable oil.
Yeah, and I will tell you right now, you're going to have a lot of people on the parabens, even some with the citric acid that would in the integrative and functional
Yeah,
world
but
would
it's such a
say,
small amount.
yeah,
It's
no, I'm
ridiculous.
with you. I'm with you. It's
But you are right. People in the integrative world start talking about the amounts that are in one capsule,
right.
for fillers.
Yeah, it's tiny amount.
We are just so fortunate with the technology that Adam and his gun hands came up with. We're the only curcumin product out there that does not require any of the magnesium stearate or any of the fillers or flow agents that are used historically in capsules. It's just one of those rare things that their technology makes that powder to where it's a very non-sticky powder compared to all other curcumin products out there.
Yeah.
Sorry for that. We weren't showing the video, and now we are live.
Adam, I'm going to do a little housekeeping,
Yep.
introduce you and Joe. Joe said he's got a couple of openers that are going to kind of clean the table a little bit for us related to questions, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, my apologies. Just to start off here with not being able to get the video on, as with all technologies. Oy vey. All right,
Are we
Josh,
officially
we
live?
are on. We are
Oh,
live. And so,
fantastic.
welcome.
Yeah, for anyone that has joined us this morning, we are so delighted. I'm Josh Bellew. Adam Payne is hanging out on the end there, the CEO of Ultra Botanica. Joe Tippens, of course, is here, and he's who you all have come to interact with today. Adam and I are just guests on this Facebook Live by the invitation of Joe, so we're not doctors or health practitioners. We're going to confine our answers to questions in the framework of regulatory compliance for dietary supplements as outlined by the FDA. If you want to know more about these products, go to ultratoday.com. We have a lot of information there you can find. And there is a phone number to call. Now, thank you for sending your questions in previously so that we could curate those and avoid doubles and things like that. There is a phone number you can call. I want to give that to you right now, 858-727-3041. We are also being joined this morning by Keith Bishop. PrevailOverCancer.com is how you can find a lot of incredible information to support yourself on this journey. Dr. Deanna Wyndham, one of our friends and favorites as well, WholeHumanLife.com, WHOLE, humanlife.com. Hey, without any further ado, Joe Tippens, thank you for being here today, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Joe.
You're welcome. I want to start. There's a lot of questions here that are kind of duplicative and can be answered at the top on a couple of issues. First of all, there's a lot of questions about each cancer subtype. And we now know, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist, but I do have now 7 years of experience of watching success cases come in. And we're now well over 5,000 successes that we know about, other than me. And they cover virtually every subtype of cancer. And I could just say it appears from results, actual results, that this protocol is cancer subtype agnostic. So we probably aren't going to cover any specific questions about cancer subtypes, other than there's some questions about, pancreatic cancer and some questions about prostate cancer. We can get into some details and more granular on those, but as to some pretty crazy success stories, particularly in 4-stage pancreatic. The second thing is a lot of questions about dosage. Some of those questions, it appears they haven't read the protocol tab at the top of the blog, and it's pretty detailed and covers what the dosages are. And then there's always questions about increasing the dosage. And I know that with hundreds of thousands of people across the world trying higher dosages without any advice, just doing it, that there's a lot of success out there of trying 1 gram, 2 grams, 3 grams, 4 grams a day. And my advice is just to say, look, keep track of your liver enzymes, and if you want to increase dosages and toy with that, knock yourself out. We do know that when we're saying 222 milligrams a day of fenbendazole, there have been toxicity studies done that suggest that 500 milligrams a day long term is safe. The second question about dosage that comes up is, what is, how does the dosage in the protocol relate to the dosage for animals on the box? And those shouldn't be confused. When veterinarians are using this to eliminate intestinal parasites, it's 3 days of effort, and then you stop. And we're talking about long-term use for humans, which can't correlate to the dosage on the box for animals for parasites. The dosage for parasites has no meaning or relationship to the dosage for cancer for humans. So with those two caveats of subtype agnostic and dosages, then the third question on dosage is what do you do for a preventative dosage versus active cancer dosage, and at what point in time in remission do you go to a preventative versus an active? And so I take, as a preventative measure, I take the protocol 3 days a week instead of 7 days a week. And I recommend people, if they're looking at using these products as a preventative medicine, prophylactic, that they go 3 days a week instead of 7 days a week. And then the second question related to that is, at what point in time in remission do you consider yourself a preventative dose instead of an active dose? And I don't know the answer to that. Me personally, I would wait until I'm in remission at least 2 years before I switch to a preventative dose instead of an active dose. So those are the two caveats that cover a lot of questions here on this list.
Okay. Rick, you have a caller that's on there?
I hope we still have that caller. Let's see if he is still there.
Okay.
John, are you there? No, apparently not. We have another one. Let's see if she is still there. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I am, dear. I am here.
Yeah, sorry.
Hi.
Yep. Go
Love
ahead.
you
What's
guys.
your question? Good morning.
Well, hi. Yes, hi, everybody. Cindy from Santa Cruz, stage 4. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello? Okay, so stage 4 appendix cancer in the abdomen wall, the liver, and in the, colon, abdominal wall. Very rare. I was on hold. I've had it since May, was doing just the Panicure with Joe Tippens protocol and CBD, and vegetarian, alkalizing my body, doing everything right. Holidays came, I screwed up, had another PET scan. Now it shows it's growing again. So, of course, I'm back to being a vegetarian and behaving. But I just want you, is there any other cases of healed appendix cancer?
Well, as I said in the opening, we haven't
Yes.
we have not found a subtype of cancer yet that we don't have success cases.
Joe
with.
Tippens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, John. I'm going to put you on hold again.
Hey, Rick, you're live.
Okay.
You're. Thank you. So yeah, and we have Dr. Wyndham and Keith Bishop on here too, but I wanted to just we've actually seen some pretty amazing things happen with all sorts of very rare cancers. I think you're right, Joe. I don't think there's a subtype of cancer that we haven't seen. You used to think that triple negative breast cancer.
Yeah, in fact, one of these podcasts a couple of times ago, I made the statement that I didn't think it worked for triple negative breast cancer, and then a lady called in and said
It worked for her.
It worked for her. So
All right. Well, I think
Well, you're one.
We're gonna, I think we're gonna hold off on getting calls in for a little while here because we got a lot of questions that people have already
Yeah.
brought in.
I just want to say one quick thing to our caller. I read a book called Radical Remissions, and one of the overriding themes, and I've had deep discussions with Joe Tippens about this, an individual's attitude can have a profound effect on their ability to move through this cancer journey and get well. So I wanted to encourage you, surround yourself with positive people. If you have a faith,
Yeah.
a spiritual discipline or something like that, plug into
Oh, yeah.
that, because I have seen so many individuals have come out of these dark places that you would never anticipate they could. They certainly utilized Joe's protocol, but they also were able to maintain a positive attitude toward things. Joe, is that a good thing to say?
Yeah, and once again, I recommend everybody look at the 2.5 hour version of the lecture by Bruce Lipton called The Biology of Belief. After I was in remission for 3 years, I found him, and I can say with hindsight being 2020, my positive thinking had some impact on my success story. I don't know what percent.
Okay, well, I am faith-based. I do have God, and thank you so much, you guys.
Yeah.
Love you.
Be encouraged. We'll be praying for you.
Thank you. God bless you.
Okay.
You guys.
Just thank you so much. So maybe Deanna or Keith, did you have anything you wanted to kind of chime in at the beginning here, or are we ready to just dig into the questions?
Is say something. Depending on how you're implementing a vegetarian or vegan diet, you may be getting too many carbs or sweets, and Keith may be able to speak to this more eloquently, but I recommend a pretty strict ketogenic diet, and the metabolism of cancer kind of calls for that. And Dr. Nasha Winters is a naturopathic doctor who wrote a book called The Metabolism of Cancer. And she really talks about the diet and all the different aspects that really need to be addressed when we're looking at cancer. So this medication, fenbendazole, is one thing that we can do. And I hear you're already addressing diet, you're addressing faith, and I recommend Bruce Lipton's book to at least half my patients, if not all of them. But just, you might want to take a second look at your diet and how you're eating. And Keith Bishop's website, Prevail Over Cancer, goes into more detail about that.
Keith, any just starting thoughts here? Thank you, Dana.
Yes, well, one of the things that I'd like to concentrate on is going to be the kind of like what's the glycemic impact or glycemic load of foods. And so, we have to be careful about carbs, easy digested carbs. So if it's white, maybe you shouldn't take a bite. There are exceptions to that rule, but cauliflower is great. But bread and white potatoes and sugars, and we have to go. Cancer ferments and loves sugars, so we do have to be very careful about those.
Interesting. All right. Well, good. Let's go right into the questions here. And Josh, do you want to parse it?
So here's the thing. I want to make sure that we reemphasize what Joe said at the top of this. He talked about the different subtypes of cancer. In other words, and I'm just going to read these real quickly: blood cancers, myeloma, breast cancer, brain cancer, throat cancer, liver cancer, prostate cancer, breast cancers. We can continue to go down that list. And from Joe's perspective of seeing several thousand individuals have success stories, I want to reiterate this. Joe, you believe that there's nothing so far you haven't seen that it doesn't move the needle on. Is that correct?
That's correct. And for example, one of these questions is about liver enzymes versus liver cancer, and people get confused about those two things. Yes, you have to watch your liver enzymes because of fenbendazole can affect them, but that has nothing to do with liver cancer, which is a totally separate subject matter.
Well, and which can also profoundly affect liver enzymes and what's going on there.
Correct.
But let's go through these questions. People spend some time, and we can be brief about it. Rita asked, does fenbendazole work on blood cancers, myeloma, from which she has suffered years from? And the answer is yes. Does the protocol work on blood cancers as tumors? We can't really address ivermectin, whether that's a good combination. Joe, you've commented on ivermectin in the past. Do you want to make any comments about it right now?
Well, I'm I'm curious as to whether ivermectin affects cancer. I know it's really great for stuff like COVID and other respiratory diseases. I'm not convinced it's effective on cancer, but certainly people do it and they have success. So how much is the fenbendazole and how much
I
is
just
the
ivermectin. We don't. Deanna, Keith, what do you guys have any? What's your approach to ivermectin, or people that want to use ivermectin in combination?
Some of my patients do use ivermectin in combination with fenbendazole, and there is some research about ivermectin and how it impacts cancer, so independent of anything else. So that is something that can be used and can be added to somebody's protocol.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you'll remember City of Hope, and Deanna, you may have read the same articles that I have, but City of Hope is a very reputable research institution dealing with cancer patients, and they've kind of begun to take a deep dive into ivermectin and doing some different studies there. So if you want to get on PubMed and look up City of Hope and type in ivermectin or cancer, you can probably find some research. Keith and or Deanna, if you know of any research, please get us those links, and we'll somehow be able to get some of those links out there for people.
Yeah. I mean, we can't put them out there,
No,
but
but
they
we
can.
can pass them on
Yeah.
to someone else.
Yeah, it'd be interesting actually to actually look at the mechanism of action of ivermectin and see if there's any cohesion there. Let's move on. Al asked about breast cancer. Has there been any positive from taking Fenben with breast cancer? Obviously, yes. We used to think triple negative wouldn't work, but we were shown it was wrong. We did have a couple of responders, I think 3 on that last call.
Yeah.
Does it work on prostate cancer, stage 4 with metastasis in the bones?
Absolutely. We have numerous success stories with 4th stage prostate with metastasis into the bones.
So, Joe, just for color here, some people come into the protocol pretty late. When you were given your diagnosis of metastatic activity everywhere in your body, you say like a Christmas tree.
Mm-hmm.
How long did they say you had to live at that point?
3 months.
3 months.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was pretty late in the game.
That was 7 years ago.
Pretty late in the game.
Very late in the game. I was told to go home and get my affairs in order.
How many days after that diagnosis did you start fenbendazole?
Oh, literally the next week. I got the call from a large animal veterinarian, told me about fenbendazole.
This was the OSU vet, right?
Yeah, he was an OSU grad.
Okay.
He was a large animal vet in western Oklahoma.
Okay.
And he told me this crazy story, and I decided I had nothing to lose, so I started on it immediately.
Wow. Okay. So 12 weeks to live, and that turned it around. Sometimes we don't know what's the tipping point for people. Obviously, there is a point at which it's too late. Mm-hmm. So we would encourage people not to be too late.
And there's so many variables, Adam. What I would say is don't judge your situation. Just go in full force.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think the easiest way to say it is we now know with hundreds of thousands of people globally that the downside risk is literally zero.
Zero. Yeah.
So if the downside risk is zero and we now have evidence of upside, I think the only question people should ask is why not?
Sure.
The supplements it can hit your pocketbook. And Joe, do you have any recommendations right now for what's the best source of fenbendazole? Because I think we're going to get into some of those questions later.
Well, I will tell you the sources not to use because I've done quite a bit of deep dive on them, and they're sketchy at best.
Okay.
Anything that's not made by Merck, and the 2 Merck products are Panacure C and Safeguard.
Right.
We know that those products are formulated in Austria. They are made in GMP facilities safely. And they cover all the bases of safety. And these other products that people, quite frankly, are using my name. I mean, there's people out there that their website is Joe Tippens. And I don't have enough time in the day to send cease and desist orders to all of them. Just a bunch of crazy people trying to make money off of the story. And there's people that have got fenbendazole products that are not made by Merck making money off of the story. And we've even sent those off to a lab and they aren't what they say they are. And I've asked repeatedly for those people to send me information on where they're being manufactured and is it a safe manufacturing environment, and they refuse to give that to me, which means they're making it in Eastern Europe and China, and we have no idea of the safety of those products.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Joe, as a matter of practicality, what you just mentioned, I was a partner in a former company that we actually had products that looked exactly like our product that were completely counterfeit. We tested them. They weren't the real thing, but they looked like they were in the right bottle. So I would say, as it relates to purchasing off the internet, there's veterinary supplies that have been buying from Merck for 50, 60 years. There's all kinds of farm stores and other stores. There's Walmart. They have a relationship with the actual manufacturer, so you know it's coming from there. And so I say that out of my heart because I have experienced the horrifying disappointment and how scary it is to have counterfeit products coming through the internet. So I can't say enough about that, Joe.
I know in the UK, there's fenbendazole is not available without a prescription. So there are some challenges there. But other than that, it's pretty much available. Merck product is available on Amazon pretty easily. All right, let's continue here. The last question under breast cancer: what protocols and supplements do you suggest for HR positive, HER2 negative metastatic breast cancer?
Again, it's cancer agnostic, and I would use the same protocol for any kind of cancer, subcancer.
Yep. All right, let's go to brain cancer and dead cells. Does fenbendazole cross the blood-brain barrier? So does taking DMSO along with fenbendazole assist with its effectiveness?
I'd say it's probably successful, but not necessary. I mean, let's go back to day one with me, and the story that was told to me by this veterinarian was that a lady scientist at Merck on the veterinary side, she herself came down with 4-stage glioblastoma wrapped around her brainstem. She was told there was nothing she could do. She started taking this, and 3 months later, she was NED and all clear. So we know it crosses the blood-brain barrier into brain cancer.
So maybe DMSO is not necessary in that context.
I don't think it's necessary, but it won't hurt.
Right.
It might help the absorption.
And then in similar question, what will rid brain of dead cancer cells?
I don't know the answer to that.
Keith or Deanna? So on the question of brain cancer.
I do have an idea about that. So, so one thing that does go into the brain, is going to be an enzyme. So actually, enzymes on an empty stomach, and more specifically, what I use for like Alzheimer's and other things help clear out the plaque inside the blood vessels. But also taking on an empty stomach is called nattokinase.
Mm.
And so that might help. I've not seen studies showing that it works for this type of situation, but that would be my go-to. Nattokinase at a moderately high dose, but on an empty stomach, if you take it with food, it's going to help you digest the food and not work. And so no closer than an hour before, a couple hours after food. That'd be one of my thoughts.
Keith and Deanna, I know that a lot of people are taking streptokinase as a way to clear out dead cells in the body. What are your thoughts about that versus nattokinase in conjunction with the supplements?
Well,
Deanna,
I did some research on that.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there's and it may work, but I couldn't find much information about crossing the blood-brain barrier, and so but it's definitely an option. And so once again, it is an enzyme, and the goal is kind of to eat away at that cancer cell, so that the immune system then will recognize that damaged cell and help get rid of it. But I didn't find any research more specifically for brain issues where the nattokinase. There is some research supporting it for going into the brain.
Yeah, but we have actual results that say it does cross the blood-brain barrier.
So results kind of
And
speak. Go ahead,
that's
Deanna.
what I was going to say too, is that Dr. Brzezinski is kind of a famous doctor for treating especially brain tumors. And at the Brzezinski Clinic, they often will change people from fenbendazole to mebendazole, believing that it crosses the blood-brain barrier better. But there's no actual research on that. And we have, as Joe Tippens has already said, there is evidence that it's crossing the blood-brain barrier because it's working in brain cancers. And the thing is that according to research that was done at University of Oklahoma by Dr. Doris Benbrook, she found 3 mechanisms of action of fenbendazole. Fenbendazole cuts off the microtubules through which cancer cells grow. It helps to starve out cancer cells, and it returns them back to dying off when they're supposed to. So those 3 mechanisms of action.
P53.
Whereas, and that third one that I mentioned about dying off when they're supposed to, that has to do with a P53 gene. And mebendazole, which is the human form of fenbendazole, does not have that third mechanism of action against cancer. So
thanks for saying that, because I'm relatively certain
it is a game changer.
90% of the people that convert to mebendazole only do so because it's already FDA human approved.
Yeah, and they're missing out on some of the other activity.
Yeah. I've actually had reports of individuals who have begun to go in the other direction when they went on mebendazole, switched back to fenbendazole, and immediately began to see similar results that they were experiencing before.
That makes sense. It's important to note that if you're doing fenbendazole, it's important to take cofactors that will affect those different metabolic pathways. Deanna or Keith, what we talk about these cofactors, can either of you address kind of what those cofactors are specifically for P53?
to help reactivate the 53 gene, you mean?
Yeah, so I mean, once P53 is expressed, you need to activate it. We can move on. We'll move on to the other questions here. So, okay, so throat cancer. Does Joe's protocol work on throat cancer caused by smoking at stage 3?
Again,
yes.
Subtype agnostic.
Yep. Liver cancer and hematochromatosis. Are all the 4 protocols, Brandon asks, plus fenben and milk thistle, safe for people with liver cancer due to hematochromatosis, which is iron toxicity and high absorption?
Well, I covered that. I don't want people to get confused about liver enzymes and liver cancer. The pathways by which it's working on a cancer cell are what they are, and that's why it's cancer subtype agnostic.
Adam, you and I are aware of some interesting research on PubMed that dates many years back related to hemochromatosis and the effect that curcumin and other polyphenols, specifically curcumin, have a profound effect.
Right, and we've actually seen people with a diagnosis of hematochromatosis take our curcumin product, and it has supported them achieving a healthy status by just using that.
It has a unique ability to chelate iron, doesn't it? And some other trace minerals.
That is correct. So that's, in that case, pathway 2 can support people's health profoundly.
And because there's such a, people are constantly asking Joe, please give me a concise way to take. Joe, I want to make sure that people understand. They can go to mycancerstory.rocks and find a written version of how you suggest individuals to take the Panacure. Is that correct?
Yeah. One of the frustrating things for me is people ask these questions without reading the blog. And then at the top of the blog is a tab, the protocol tab, and it's very detailed on all of the dosages. You know, one of the comical things that happens to me is people will email me from the blog and ask where the blog is. You can't fix stupid. I mean, it's or lazy. I don't know.
Yep. It's there's a lot of information there in the blog, and we would encourage people to read it before moving on to in fact, you have to read the blog in order to get a key to get into the Facebook group. It's kind of one of the requirements there.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to the section of protocol specifics and questions on how to use the protocol and dosage. Just as a preamble, Joe, recently you changed the protocol to add pathway 4, which is the EGCG, resveratrol, fisetin, and beta-glucans. That was done with based upon the research that we did, and it helps to support health. And the current healthy dosage to support health is on the bottle. I think it's 2 capsules twice a day. Josh is correct. Let's go into the first question here. Carolyn asks, immediately after receiving my diagnosis, I began taking fenbendazole and continue to do so daily. Once in remission, when does one switch to maintenance dosage of fenbendazole and the pathway products?
Well, as I said in the preamble, there's not a specific answer, but if it were me, I wouldn't go to maintenance dosage until I was in remission at least 2 years.
Okay. Current maintenance protocol. What protocol did Joe start with his lung cancer? I've just been diagnosed with the same. I ordered Fenben, but I did not know what else to take. Well,
it's the protocol tab at the top of the blog at mycancerstory.rocks. And, I didn't have the benefit of pathways 1 through 4. So going back 7 years ago, I was taking curcumin, and it was supposedly a highly absorbable curcumin, not near what Adam's guys have achieved scientifically. And I was taking a few other things, CBD and curcumin. I think the current protocol after 7 years of research is a game changer compared to what I even took.
Okay. Well, and we have, Joe, you didn't make those changes just lightly.
Oh, no.
You're not getting anything financially out of our
No,
relationship.
No, I'm not making any money off of Ultra Botanica. I just did a very, very deep dive, 2 man years of research.
It was a long time.
Yeah, and stumbled upon the Ultra Botanica guys solely because of their absorption technology. A lot of these products just simply won't absorb into the bloodstream, and the protocol of Ultra Botanica with liquid protein scaffolding makes those items highly absorbable. And
we have data to support that. One of the reasons why you moved from Theracurmin to pathway 2 is because the data showed that we had a absorption rate that was 6 times higher than the Theracurmin.
Yeah, and Theracurmin is 6 times higher than the over-the-counter products.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
Exactly. It's one of the best out there on the shelf, and yet we are far beyond that. I want to address something that Brandon writes. Again, Joe, people are looking at the labels on the bottles and getting confused, and you're going to tell them, go to the protocol tab on the blog, right?
Yeah. So the mechanism by which fenbendazole kills intestinal parasites is totally unrelated to the mechanism by which it kills cancer. And so the dosage on a bottle for a steer or a cow or a dog has nothing to do with what we're talking about here in terms of the effectiveness on cancer cells.
So there was another question here. We did have a mismatch on the dosages that were on your blog versus what's actually on the bottles, and that's because the dosages that were on the blog, we recently updated them. Were based upon our first generation products from 2 years ago. We made significant changes to pathway 2. We changed the scaffold from cysteine to brown rice protein, and that necessitated a dosage change from 1 capsule twice a day to 3 capsules twice a day.
Yeah, many people have read Jane McClellan's book, How to Starve Your Cancer Without Starving Yourself. Joe knows her personally, and a lot of people like to follow a lot of the information that Jane McClellan has, and that's one of the primary reasons that Adam chose to go ahead and change that cysteine scaffold on the pathway 2 to a brown rice protein conjugate.
Yeah, she's become a good friend of mine. I'd say the only difference in what she's doing and what we're recommending is fenben versus meben.
Oh, she's still recommending mebendazole?
Well, she does because any doctor can prescribe it.
Oh, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
and in the UK, as you said, Adam, you've got a Fenben prescription issue as well,
Right.
insurance issues, things like that.
All right, let's continue down the list here. Breast cancer, reduced dosage. I have breast cancer also in the liver. What is the dosage for this situation? Is it reduced?
No, same dosage.
And I think she's concerned because it said it's spread to the liver. And I think, as Joe always says, get your liver enzymes checked maybe what, Joe, every 60 days?
Or every 6
30?
months.
Okay.
Well, and
or 6
also
months?
get
Okay.
get under the care of a good clinical nutritionist or functional doctor that understands the supplements and understands fenbendazole, like Deanna or Keith in the case of a clinical nutritionist. Keith or Deanna, any comments on if you have liver involvement with metastatic activity or primary cancer in the liver?
I don't change dosing on my patients when they have things going on in the liver. We just watch to see if the liver enzymes are going to become more elevated. But sometimes even when they do, I still don't change. But I do definitely recommend that you work with a nutritionist, a physician, an integrative doctor, somebody that understands the integrative aspect of cancer and how to work with these things. But fenbendazole at the dosages that are used for cancer is extremely safe. It's 10 times that dosage would be used as the parasite dosage, just as a comparison. I
Well,
know that
the research that I found that said that it could affect the liver was crazy. It was at 1,000 times the dosage we're
Yes.
recommending here. I mean,
You mean in terms of a safe
yeah.
dosage?
And again,
right.
we know there's a toxicity trial on it that says 500 milligrams a day long term is safe.
Interesting. Moving down the list here, what is the most, Chris asks, and Rhoda, what is the most effective way to consume fenben?
Well, most people, it's not dissolvable in water. I do the simple thing. I throw it in the back of my throat and chase it with water. But some people can't do that, and so they mix it with a smoothie or yogurt. And then a lot of people switch to the liquid form just because of that. It's just easier to take and
It's quite economical too.
Yeah.
So you can get a liter of the cattle and goat formula. That's it's 100 milligrams per ml, and it's about $160 last I checked.
Yep.
And that's over a year's worth of product.
And this would be a good time to say we have successes with melanoma, topical melanoma.
Oh,
with
that's interesting.
with people using the paste form topically.
That's very interesting.
And Joe, I'm reading between the lines a little bit on the last question as well. Is it just anecdotal that people consuming fats along with the fenbendazole has an ability to help absorption?
I don't know if it's anecdotal. I think it's true.
Okay, good.
But I don't know the science behind that.
So olive oil, a slice of avocado, healthy fats, things like that. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
A lot of
Okay.
people, there's a lot of discussion on the Facebook group about needing to take fats with fenben. Can you address that?
I think that's anecdotal. I've never done that, and I know a lot of people haven't. But again, it won't hurt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Keith or Deanna, any weigh in on that? Because that comes up so frequently.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I would like to say that, sorry for jumping right in there, Keith. I recommend that people take it with food, and if they're eating a ketogenic diet like I recommend them to, then they're eating 30% fat with roughly with every meal, and so they're getting that with the fenbendazole, and they don't have to think about it. I just think they should take it with food.
That's very helpful.
Yeah.
Keith?
And there is a study on humans showing that it is better absorbed with food and fats. So it does make a difference.
Oh, well, there you go. The
I do have
anecdote
a question that I'd like to pose The liquid form, I've been recommending that for patients because it's so cost effective. But now I've gotten 4 times people have said they got those bottles from Merck and they are not sealed. Is there any concern about that? Apparently those bottles are not sealed. They don't have a safety seal on them. I didn't know this until I was getting the feedback.
I didn't know that either.
And
I wouldn't concern myself with it too much.
yeah, you know what we'll do is we have an analytical lab here. We'll test some of that product coming from it's coming from Amazon, is it not, Deanna?
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
We'll just check
I
it
think
out.
even if you go to a farm supply, Tractor Supply,
It'll be the same
any
thing.
of those, it's going to be the same. It's
Yeah,
just got
I
the
guess they don't care about
child
much
safety
safety
cap.
for goats and cattle.
Yeah,
I guess not.
it's a child safety cap.
It's
basically.
yep. Those goats, man, they get into everything. All right. So Brandon asked, what's the proper dosing of protocols 1 through 4? And again, there's different amounts. There were different amounts on the website. You might need to refresh your browser. The current dosages, pathway 1 is weight dependent. Pathway 2 is 3 capsules twice a day. Pathway 3 is 1 capsule with a light meal, 2 capsules with a heavy meal. And pathway 4 is 2 capsules twice a day as the base dosing. We strongly recommend working with a clinical nutritionist or functional doctor or naturopath because they might recommend different dosing than what's on the bottle. Keith or Deanna, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, well, the pathway 3, like I mentioned earlier about blood glucose and carbohydrates. Well, that's part of the purpose of the berberine is to help get those glucose sugars into the cells. The herb itself has some anti-cancer activities, and so taking it for meals and snacks, I do it all the time. Matter of fact, I definitely go like 2 capsules before meals. And this brand is different than most because I can go with, if we need to go with 6 a day, of that, my clients have yet to have any gastrointestinal distress, like
Right.
cramping, gas, diarrhea, where if you do that with regular berberine capsules, matter of fact, myself, I can take 3 of those and I start having problems. I can take 6 of the pathway 3 and I don't have any problems with that. So it could be, it's
Yeah.
better absorbed. So that's going to get into the body and do its job.
Yeah, I might add that that's one difference between this and Jane McClellan. She uses a prescription drug, metformin, to lower blood sugar, and I think your product is equally effective to a prescription drug, metformin.
We can't say that publicly, but it is actually it absorbs really, really well.
I can say that's my belief.
Yeah, that's good.
Now, and Keith and Deanna, I want to
Go ahead, Deanna.
go ahead, Deanna.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that in relation to the metformin berberine, that you might also look in your box coming out, because Keith and I are talking about berberine in the newsletter, Ultra Botanica newsletter, and that's one of the things I'm addressing is this metformin berberine issue. I think
interesting.
berberine in a lot of instances is actually better than metformin, and I'll be talking about that in the newsletter.
I would like to preview something here. We are coming out with a pathway 3 plus, which will be the LPS berberine, which is currently in there, plus Applied Biosciences fermented wheat germ extract combination. So there's been a lot of study about fermented wheat germ extract. It came out of Hungary as Avamar. And what we've learned based upon the scientific research is that fermented wheat germ extract affects cells by disrupting glucose metabolism.
And I did take fermented wheat germ originally.
And Keith and Deanna, this is Josh. I want to ask you a question. I run into so many people that they're simply not going to change their diet. And I think all of us at the table here recognize from all the books we've read, the number one thing you can do, the quickest thing you can do, especially if you're going to be integrating, fenben that seems to have such a wild success to it, But so I'm going to ask both of you, if an individual is not willing to change their diet and they are going to take pathway 3, now let's talk about dosing there, because I've had a number of integrative practitioners tell me that they know their people are not changing their diet. Consequently, they're recommending more. What are your thoughts there?
Well, first of all, not changing your diet
Well,
when
you
you
broke
have
up a little bit there,
cancer
so I'm
is
not sure. I think you were asking about.
Go ahead, Deanna, and then Keith will let you tag in on that. But I'm simply saying if an individual is going to continue to eat a standard American diet that is high in refined carbohydrates, what would be a more appropriate dosing for the pathway 3? Because we have some people that start out and they just take 1 capsule twice a day. But if they're eating that way, what would you recommend?
I honestly can't say that any of my patients are doing that, or at least they're not telling me if they are. It's a lot like if you're on a sinking ship and you start bailing the boat without plugging the hole, you're still gonna sink. You're just gonna sink slower.
Wow.
And not changing your diet when you have cancer is much the same.
That's a great
You're
analogy.
feeding, yeah, you're feeding the cancer at the same time that you're trying to kill it. And that's not a very effective plan. But having said all of that, then I would definitely increase the berberine and take maybe 3 or even 4 with a meal, probably to tolerance is what I would say.
Interesting. Okay.
That's a
Keith?
dangerous game.
Yeah, Keith, any thoughts there? Because I know both of you are really solid on diet and the understanding of how that works and affects cancers.
Yeah, so it's estimated that 30 to 50% depends on which of many studies show that, what we eat, can increase the risk, and even then, that's not counting the outcomes of cancer, but, what we eat could impact cancer rates by 30 to 50%. So, if you don't make a change, you can't expect different results. And so because you're not making a change in the internal environment. So fenbendazole can help, the supplements can help. The more things that we can do to impact or hit the cancer cells, the better. If we can, take away, some of those carbohydrates that are so easily absorbed and can raise blood glucose, that's just an easy fuel for them. And now they're going to struggle. And so food is extremely important. Eating lower carbohydrate, ketogenic type, and then because we have to have some carbs, and you're going to get some, but taking the berberine prior to that meal is when I choose to do it. That's my choice.
Okay, thank you.
So there's a lot of research out there that supports the concept that cancer is a metabolic disease primarily and secondarily as a genetic disease. There's a great book. If anybody's interested in digging further into it, I would strongly suggest reading the book Tripping Over the Truth by Travis Christofferson. It's a great read. It goes into the history of cancer research and cancer therapy from the inception of mustard gas kind of being the first therapy for cancer back in the 40s and 50s. And then everything changed from there. So let's go back to some of the questions here. If capsules from protocol can't be swallowed, is it okay to mix all of them together at the same time with the fenben into a smoothie or yogurt or something like that?
I would say yes. I mean, there's no downside to that. I would say if they're taking a capsule form of fenbendazole, they've got the wrong product.
Right.
That's one of these charlatan people making money off of this, because the right stuff does not come in a capsule form.
Yep, it makes sense. All right, last question here about the dosages. In your blog, you say the protocol doesn't get in our blood, so take it with food. I think we already addressed that. So let's go on to treatment and therapy queries. All right. Josh, you want to lead off on some of these questions here? Sure. Give me a little bit of a break.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, again, we're hitting some things here, Joe, that maybe repeats. Someone's question is, I've got fourth stage non-small cell lung cancer and now developed a cyst in my lung. What kind of regimen can I do for it? What would you recommend? And I think this is what we've been talking about the entire time, right?
Same protocol.
Right, okay. And then kidney cancer, is 1 gram per day of Panacure C the right dose for kidney cancer? Wants to know the appropriate dose. Again, your blog.
Yeah.
And
The
protocol tab?
Protocol is 1 gram a day or 222 milligrams. But again, a lot of people around the world have experienced higher dosages with no problems.
Okay, we are getting that one of those questions related to the inert, the inert ingredients that are in Panacure C. In other words, you have 222 milligrams of fenbendazole in there, and then there is, approximately the rest of that gram is made up of inert ingredients. You have any thoughts about that, Joe?
Yeah, it's interesting. I never even gave this much thought until I saw this question this morning, and I did a deep dive. And in most of the MSDS sheets, it's not even they're so inert that they're not even required to be disclosed. So I had to do a pretty deep dive to even find out what they were.
Did you find out?
Yeah,
You
I
did.
think they're all very benign. Maybe Keith and Dana would feel differently, but it's parabens, silicon dioxide, citric acid, molasses, and vegetable oil.
Oh, molasses might be an issue, but that's just probably for taste for the dog.
Yeah, but think about how tiny of a amount this is.
Right.
It's minuscule.
That makes sense. Let's see here. So, Josh, continue on here.
Yeah, so we've got a post-cancer recurrence question, and along with Joe, I would love for you, Deanna, and Keith to weigh in on this. It says, what would you recommend to take post-cancer to keep the cancer from coming back? I'm going to chime in right away and say your diet could be everything there. But what are your thoughts to take after someone is basically truly NED or in remission?
And you've
Joe?
already addressed this to
I
some
have.
degree. Yeah.
I recommend 3 days a week instead of 7 days a week
Okay.
as a prophylactic.
But you mentioned staying on protocol though for 2 years.
I pulled that number out of the air because I don't know the answer, but I'd say to people, if it were me, I would wait until I'm
Right.
in remission 2 years.
Right. Keith, Diana, as it relates to post-cancer protocols, what are your thoughts?
I always
like
look
to-
at the terrain. Sorry, we keep doing that. I always look at the terrain. So you mentioned the research about cancer really being a metabolic issue and not a genetic issue. It's really interesting because in the research they've actually taken cancer cells versus non-cancerous cells, and when they put the nucleus where the genes are, where the genetic code is, when they take a healthy cell's nucleus and put it in a cancer cell, that cancer cell becomes healthy. And when they take a cancer cell's nucleus and put it in a healthy cell, that healthy cell becomes cancerous. The nucleus. I think I said that backwards. I'm so sorry. The DNA does not change the cancer cell, but
Right.
the cell changes the cancer cell. So a cancer nucleus in a healthy cell will still be healthy.
That's
And
profound.
so the importance of that, because if you truly absorb this, the genetics of cancer does not change the cancer. What changes cancer is what is the milieu or the terrain. And so there are a lot of things that go into the terrain, how you're eating, toxins in your environment, nutrient deficiencies. There are a lot of things that go into the terrain and how healthy the terrain is. And so whenever
Exercise, hydration, things like that as well.
Yeah, there's
Deanna. Okay.
there's 17 factors that I've been able to identify that impact the terrain. from that I've been able to identify over 20 years in the research. So
Wow.
I always, whenever somebody's healed, we have long-term maintenance, whether they're healed from cancer, from heart disease, from dementia, it doesn't matter what they're healed from, autoimmune disease, it doesn't matter. We maintain that health by maintaining a healthy terrain. And so diet's an important part of that. Fenbendazole 3 times a week. When I have patients that are at high risk, that's a great thing that we love to do. And then staying on their supplements as well are all good things to do. But working with an integrative practitioner is, I think, paramount to identifying what created the problem in your body's terrain that it was able to produce cancer. And then what do you specifically need to do to make sure it doesn't come back?
Right. Keith, do you have anything to add there?
Well, one example of that is going to be, once again, the food aspect. And there is one study, a human study, they found that women that have breast cancer, right before they had surgery, they actually had them eat nuts every day. And I can't remember which nut it was, but it was like a handful of nuts, and that changed. And I can't remember the number, but it was many, maybe 100 or 200 different genetic or different processes inside the cell, the nucleus, like what she was talking about, that could express as it's turning into cancer. And so right before they had the surgery to remove that cancer, when they removed that surgery, they noticed a change in those cells from the time they did the biopsy to then they removed the tumor. There was a significant change within 30 days of just eating differently.
Yeah, that demonstrates in a beautiful way what can happen, and that we are indeed what we eat. That's amazing.
There's great evidence. Some of the many of the ingredients in the Pathway products are known for their ability to help reinvigorate and support an active and vigilant immune system, especially beta glucans in Pathway 4 has a lot of data supporting its ability in a remission circumstance to support ongoing health, especially from the point of view of the immune system.
And Adam, the epigenetic expression of cells also related to Pathway 1 and all of those, really.
Across the board.
Yeah.
I mean, if work with an integrative physician or clinical nutritionist like Keith to find the right dosing for yourself after you get into remission. It's so important. The fight, there's so many, we get calls every day of people that were in remission and now they're finding that their cancers are back. And I'm not saying this to scare anybody, but this is an ongoing quest of vigilance for people that have cancer. Myself included. I had an in situ melanoma last year, a crazy thing, right? And thankfully, we were able to capture it. I have no cancer cells that we know of circulating in my body, but I'm staying on protocol in a reduced context. But that's all done under the guidance of people that have knowledge about this stuff.
Well, in my case, MD Anderson says I have a 90% chance of reoccurrence.
Wow.
And seven years later, I have no reoccurrence. And I personally believe it's because I'm on the maintenance protocol.
Yeah. You wanted to address this question here?
Yeah. One of the questions is about stage 4 pancreatic cancer.
This is from Belinda.
Yeah. And this one is really fascinating to me, and I don't know really why. But in most cases, this protocol works anywhere from 2 months to 8 months. And
you mean in terms of time it takes to respond?
Yeah, response time. And in the 7 really key 4th stage pancreatic cases, all 7 of them were told they had 3 months to live. All 7 of them stayed on the protocol for longer than anybody else. And in all 7 cases, the response wasn't until 18 months. I mean, and so if you have pancreatic cancer, I think you stay on it indefinitely, because we now know in those 7 cases that it didn't really, what it did is it kept the cancer tumors at bay, and it allowed them to live a normal lifestyle way beyond what they were told they were going to be able to. And then miraculously, 18 months to 20 months later, they ended up NED
Wow.
from fourth stage pancreatic, which is crazy.
That's astonishing.
So
And
it
such
didn't
good
progress over
information.
that period of time. That is amazing.
I don't know why it took that long, but it did.
And it
But I
didn't
would say
spread.
living for 18 months was also quite, the fact that they got to the 18-month mark.
Yeah, that's
with
amazing
stage
by
4
itself.
pancreatic
It is.
cancer.
Right.
It is indeed. Yeah. That's been one of the recurring themes, Joe, is this longevity theme with individuals with pancreatic cancer having extended life and quality of life as well.
Well,
It's been profound.
to me, one of the, I think, disgusting things about clinical trials in some cases is a lot of these clinical trials are objective response trials, and the objective is to extend life by 6 to 8 months. Well,
Right.
to me, that's not an objective.
Right. Even a couple of months is sometimes the benchmark for some of these immune therapies like Keytruda.
Yeah.
They're saying
Well, in a clinical trial that I was in on Keytruda, the objective was 6 months of additional life. That's ridiculous.
yeah, it
to
is
me.
ridiculous.
I would like to add in with pancreatic cancer that lots of times, specifically in that type of cancer, we're looking at utilizing enzymes like wobenzyme, streptozyme. Dr. Gonzalez is an oncologist that's done a
Right.
lot of integrative research and treatment of pancreatic cancer patients, and using a lot of enzymes was kind of his key to that. And so
Yeah.
that's something that I'm usually doing with pancreatic cancer people, is adding enzymes to their protocol.
And Deanna, does that come into is it the classification of proteolytic enzymes? Am I remembering that correctly or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and he used to start at wobenzyme, is just the name of an enzyme
Right.
that
Oh,
he used
wobenzyme.
to start
Fabulous
with
one
as
out of
his
Germany.
beginner.
Yes.
What
Okay.
what's in?
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that? What's in wobenzyme?
Honestly, I would have to look it up.
All right. Well, maybe we'll
It's
take a look at it later.
classified as a digestive enzyme.
Okay.
But it's a proteolytic enzyme.
But it's a proteolytic enzyme, and it has digestive enzymes in it, and it's bromelain.
So it's designed
yeah,
to stay in the gut, not to get proteolytic enzymes into circulation, obviously, because that would eat the body. But it's
Right.
designed as a digestive enzyme, right?
right, but the pancreas is part of our
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So
gastrointestinal tract, and
so we'll get in there. Yeah. Never
it's-
mind.
Yeah,
All right. There's
yeah.
one
So
last
it
quote.
is.
Go ahead. Sorry.
That's all.
Okay.
So yeah, it's
there's-
getting to the pancreas.
There's one question here from John. March of 2021, I discovered a small mass in my neck, one in the heart and left lung, one near the diaphragm, and several nodules within the pleura of the lung. What should I do next?
Again,
That was in 2021. So
Yeah.
what's happened since then?
again, I would stay to the protocol and not change depending on the subtype.
And get a good integrative physician or nutritionist as well. All right. We're going to move on to combinations and alternatives. Did did you had some things you wanted to chime in here on some of the questions, and Deanna, let's the first one's about ivermectin. Does the protocol work on blood cancers as tumors? Can you take ivermectin and fenbendazole together? I think we already addressed this.
We did.
Yep.
We did indeed.
So rewind to the beginning here. Burley asks, would DMSO be a safe option to combine with fenbendazole to enter the bloodstream?
I'd say yes, but it's not necessary.
Yep. And DMSO is not indicated for oral use, but people do all sorts of things. Keith, what's your thought?
Well, yes, DMSO is a solvent, and I'm not a big fan of taking it orally.
I
And
agree.
So yes, it does help mix with drugs and increases the absorption, but it can be a toxin too and create some issues and damage. So it's not part
The
of my
reason why it's a
protocol.
toxin is because it takes everything across the barrier. Anything that's in your gut,
Exactly.
it will bring it right into your circulation, which is why it can be an issue.
And I
Yes.
would like to say that imbalances in the microbiome in the gut are one of the top 3 triggers that turn on your risk for cancer and other immune system based diseases. And so if you're taking DMSO and you already have an imbalance or a state of dis-ease or not health in the gut, then the DMSO is potentially going to increase absorption of that as well. And so that would be one of my big concerns.
Okay. There's a lot of discussion on the Facebook group about liver support, especially given the occurrence that fenbendazole can affect liver enzymes. Here's a question. Brenda asks, do you think it's important to take a liver support like TUDCA? Other people suggest something like milk thistle. Maybe y'all here, we're in Oklahoma, y'all can comment on that.
Well, I personally believe the toxicity to the liver is way overblown. With literally hundreds of thousands of people trying this, it's just not an issue. Some people do have elevated enzymes, and they need to take milk thistle as a support.
Okay.
And Keith and Deanna, you would tackle that from a different direction in regard to not just the effect of fenben, which Joe has demonstrated over the years to be incredibly safe. You also mentioned the high toxicity. I mean, that high amounts one would have to take for even hitting some kind of level of toxicity. But you probably both, Keith and you, Deanna, probably have something to say about liver support in general and how that may help an individual move through their journey with cancer. What would you say to that?
So I'll go first. So fenben, I've not seen any issues with it creating any liver issues. So normally what I see is liver enzymes going up either due to chemotherapy drugs, maybe even a statin drug or a prescription drug and or chemotherapy. So that's what we see problems with. And for that, my preference is to do milk thistle. Milk thistle does have some science behind it and for anti-cancer activities. And it does help the liver to function better and does help it to repair some. So that's going to be my go-to. TUDCA is, popular on blogs and groups, but there's not as much information. There's a few studies, but not much on its anti-cancer impact.
Deanna, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I would agree with Keith. I much prefer milk thistle over TUDCA, but I also agree with Joe that it's one of the more irritating questions in regards to fenbendazole. You can literally take this at 10 times the dosage every single day and not be toxic to the liver. So,
interesting.
this 222 milligrams once or twice a day, or even if people are taking it 4 times a day, is still well below what we would know to be toxic. And I have had people that have had elevations in liver enzymes. They're typically transient and typically not associated with any decline in liver function. I have had one person that had to stop it, but she was also on chemotherapy. And so it was the combination of the chemotherapy. And I think that was the major reason her liver enzymes were going up. But I've had one person that's had to stop it because of elevated liver enzymes. And I don't think it wasn't because of the medication. It was because of the chemotherapy. And she chose to stay on the chemotherapy instead of staying on fenbendazole, which was just her personal choice.
I would like to suggest that I don't think there's been a case of people that have experienced lasting liver damage as a result of taking elevated or fenbendazole.
No.
Even with the elevated enzymes. All right. Brandon asked a question about it, whether you can open the capsules, so we've already addressed that. Let's move on to general inquiries and access. There's a question about ivermectin. I don't think we really need to address that because we're talking about fenbendazole here. Cynthia asked an interesting question. Do I have to stop fenbendazole before a PET scan?
Absolutely not. There's no correlation, and I would not worry about it.
All right, I think we have a call. And Rick, before the call, there was a question that maybe somebody wanted to ask.
Yeah, actually, I had several. First one was a caller says that she has blood cancer, had lost her spleen, and now wanted to know what she should do.
That's a new one for me.
We'll get with a good functional doc and clinical nutritionist. That would be my first recommendation. Deanna or Keith?
Yeah, and the spleen isn't really playing a part in your ability to utilize for your body to utilize any of these supplements or the fenbendazole, and so that doesn't need to make a change. I can't give you medical advice because I'm not your doctor, but generally speaking, the absence of a spleen wouldn't change your protocol.
That's good. All right, let's
Good to know.
let's go to the caller, and then let's hit your next question.
All right. So
who do we have?
click here is this is John. And John, hang on. Click it. All right, John, I think you're on the air now.
Great. Hello, everybody.
Hey, John. Welcome to the Q&A. What's your question?
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, John, can you turn your computer down?
You bet. Hold on. Thank you. Yeah, so you touched briefly, I'm John, the caller, or the question about diagnosed with a sarcoma a couple years ago. It's now in my chest, it's over my heart and lung, it's in my diaphragm, and it's in my abdomen. So I've had 3 surgeries over the last 10 months. I'm on my 3rd round of chemo, Patholaxtil, carboplatin, and gemcitabine, and none of those worked. So they've now got me on a targeted immune therapy, Votrient or Pazopanib, and we're having little luck slowing down the mass, the one that they say that's going to take me down over the heart and the lung. I've met with my oncologist. I've talked about your program with obviously fleeting desire to do that from her perspective. But I'm listening to this blog. I'm reading your blog. I'm listening to you, getting on a protocol. One thing that I'm confused about is you're saying get onto the protocol. Well, you're showing from your blog that you have pathway 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then the fenbendazole. You do all the pathways together. Do you start with the fenbendazole? For somebody that's brand new to this,
I would do.
I want to get.
Yeah, you should do all of them with one exception. If you're on active chemo, you should not do Onco 2 the day before, the day of, and the day after active chemo. That's the only exception.
Okay.
Agreed.
By the way, we now know with hundreds of people out there that fenbendazole in conjunction with immunotherapy is quite good.
Okay, with a Votrient or a some pill like that.
Yeah, and John, I would also strongly recommend consulting with Keith and or Deanna, because your oncologist will be tickled pink that you are working with somebody that understands the supplementation side of cancer, because most of these oncologists have zero understanding of supplements and of fenbendazole for that matter. And they don't want to make any recommendations. In fact, most of them just say don't do anything.
It's uncharted territory.
They don't want to risk their license.
Yeah,
Sure.
They cannot prescribe it.
Right.
I will say when I started this 7 years ago, 95% of all oncologists would say, don't listen to that guy. He's a quack.
Yeah.
And 7 years later, it's well over 50% of the oncologists now say, winky, winky, I can't tell you to do it, but it's not going to hurt you.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, I do believe,
what-
John, go ahead, John. I think we have another caller as well.
You had mentioned that make sure you get a functional doctor and a clinical nutritionist. Yeah. What does a functional doctor mean? Well, I've got
Deanna, go for it, Doc. We have one on the line here.
I'm Dr. Wyndham. I'm a functional integrative doctor. So integrative, I always say that it means, or functional means that we're working with the functional capacity of the body, not just trying to suppress symptoms. And integrative means that we're utilizing everything that's available in research and science, not just the standard of care. Standard of care uses about 10% of what's available to us from science and research. So when you're looking for an integrative doctor, you're looking for a doctor that's going to use all of science and research, not just that 10%, which is the standard of care. And you can find somebody, you can look up integrative doctors near me, functional doctors near me. You will find people. And then you can also go to People Against Cancer, which is a website to get a referral to an integrative oncologist. You can go to A4M, American Academy for Anti-Aging Medicine, for referrals to integrative doctors. You can look me up on my website and or Keith's website, to the Prevail Over Cancer website. But having somebody to help you through this is extremely beneficial. It tailors the program to you.
John, thank you so much for calling. You can look. I hope you find what you're looking for, and we wish you well in your journey.
Yeah, I believe we have another caller.
Yep.
Yes, I have a caller on hold, but I had some other calls earlier. One woman was asking about taking is Fenben safe for transplant patients?
Wow, that's interesting. I don't. Maybe
Doc,
people on the line can tell me this, but I don't think there's any contradiction there.
Okay, and then there was another call about scar tissue.
Well, first let's Deanna or Keith. Anything about transplants?
Yeah, if it's a liver transplant, then you really need a doctor helping you just to make sure that you're okay. Otherwise, there's really no contraindication. Not even in a liver transplant, but just because it's a liver transplant, you would want to keep closer track of it. But there really is no contraindication.
Great. Okay. Let's
Rick.
All right, so I think
what you want to bring in the caller.
One on. Both lines are going. Let's go to channel 2 there and see if she is still there.
Hi, welcome. You're on the Q&A with Joe Tippens. What's your question?
She's not there yet. Hang on. Now she's there.
Hi. You're on the Q&A session with Joe Tippens. Can you make sure your computer or your audio is down so we don't hear in the background? And please ask your question.
Okay, that's the best I can do because
Thank you.
I'm in a restaurant having a burger.
Oh my gosh. Well, all right. So what's your question, dear?
All right. My question is, I was diagnosed with a 10 millimeter and a 12 millimeter, two different lumps in the right breast lump. And consequently, they haven't told me anything that I need to do or don't need to do. But with this diagnosis, I'm like, hello, I smoked for 50 years. I've now quit. However, before somebody starts telling me what I need to do and how I need to do it, I immediately came back to Joe Tippens because I've recommended 3 people from your broadcast, and they have all done exactly what you've told them to do. And the only one that didn't make it through was my daughter, but she had a different kind of cancer that evidently it didn't phase. So before I go do anything, I thought, you know what, call the mastermind. He had lung cancer, and everything he did seemed to work.
And I was a smoker, and I had small cell lung cancer, and there's a 95% correlation between smoking and small cell. So have you had a
Right.
have you had a biopsy to understand whether it's
No, I've got that scheduled for the 19th.
Okay. Well, I don't think the answer is different whether it's small cell or non-small cell. People told me early in the game that small cell was so dangerous compared to non-small cell that nothing would help. But I am testament that widely metastasized small cell, which is deadly, we knocked it out with this. So
Yeah. And that's kind of the course of the disease for small cell lung cancer, isn't it?
well, look, I don't want to brag, but
Go ahead, Joe. Brag a little bit.
In the 45-year history of MD Anderson, I'm the sole data outlier with widely metastasized small cell still vertical.
And we love you for it. Oh, go ahead. We have another.
Forever.
Well, thank you so much for your call. Hopefully we answered your question.
Yeah, go to Joe's blog and read exactly what he says related to protocol. You can find the good information there, and be sure and refresh your browser in case you haven't been there in a while. Okay, we have another caller, Rick.
No, no other caller, but there was one
Another
other question that had come in earlier. Fella had knee surgery 12 weeks ago, and he still has pain. He's on the protocol, and his doctor thought his knee pain should have gone away after 4 weeks. 12 weeks later, he still has pain, and so he's wondering if the protocol affects the recovery of his knee surgery.
Wow, I don't know.
Well, actually, most of the supplements
No.
in there should actually help. Should help on the recovery. If
True,
he's have
true.
the knee still hurts, something's wrong. He should probably get it checked out. Yep. Let's move on to some of the questions that we have here. We addressed the one about PET scan. Somebody asked about the exact things to buy for the protocol. Go to the blog. It's in the top there. Questions about how to access the session. Okay, here we go. Diet queries, fruit and intermittent fasting. Andrea asked, I did have a question about fruit and if it's okay to eat. My husband has done a juice cleanse in the first 6 weeks, and then for about 4 months has done a raw diet, and now adding some different cooked foods in. Keith, you want to address that?
Sure. I like to be careful about the quantity of fruit. Not saying you can't have it, but we have to be very careful. Matter of fact, I made a social media post the other night, maybe last night, I forget, about banana chips. Banana chips have a ton of sugars and would not be appropriate. And they're actually, so fruits, the fibers help decrease the impact of those sugars, but some of them are worse than others. Like banana chips are going to be worse than a green banana. A ripe banana is worse than a green banana. So there are limits. You have to be careful about the quantity, and dried fruits are typically not great. But one area we have to be careful about, since they mentioned juicing, is going to be apple juice. And so, when a company or a person extracts out that juice and just gets rid of the fiber and they drink the juice, it will raise blood glucose. And apple juice consumption in human dietary studies, looking at how much they drink, does increase the risk for several cancers. And so I like to be careful about fruit juices. Matter of fact, actually, a serving of a fruit juice is only 3 to 4 ounces, less than half of a cup. Most people are drinking more than that. So if you go over that, and then same thing with fruit, a serving of fruit is, half of a cup. So we have to be careful about the quantities, but overall they're good. I do have some guides available on my website about that.
Yeah, and for any of you that want to reach out to Keith Bishop, you can go to prevailovercancer.com. There's some great information there. If you want to reach out to Dr. Deanna Wyndham, you can go to wholehumanlife.com. That's WHOLE, humanlife.com. Keith, you brought something up a while ago as we were talking about these liver toxicity questions, and I'd love for you and Deanna to weigh in. I've heard some recent breaking information that most of us, I think, have known forever about statin drugs, but as it relates to statin drugs and liver toxicity and liver enzymes, Could you, either of you, address something related to statins? Because it's beginning to be a very big deal in the news again about how dangerous they potentially are. And I'm wondering, with someone with cancer taking statin drugs, what are your thoughts?
I guess I'll weigh in first. Because of the Jane McClellan's book, a lot of people read that and want to go on statins as a result. And I believe that there are safer ways to do the same thing. Statin drugs can cause liver toxicity, they can cause congestive heart failure, they can cause muscle wasting. And long term, there are the longer you take statins, the higher the risk is. And tell me if you disagree with that, Keith. You might know more about it than that. If I do have somebody on statins, then I have them on other supplements to protect them while they're on statins. But I prefer to have them on natural supplements as opposed to statin drugs.
Okay.
I might add there that Jane McClellan's work was the precursor to a group called Care Oncology.
Right.
And Care Oncology has metformin and statins in their protocol. I personally believe it's because their business model is to engage physicians as customers first, and as physicians they need to take stuff that they can prescribe as a traditional therapy. I am skeptical about statins and cancer.
Keith, please weigh in on that.
You're right about that.
Go ahead.
Because their model was specifically medications that can be repurposed in cancer. That's specifically what she was looking for. Yeah.
Right.
Go ahead, Keith.
Yep.
Keith, you want to weigh in on that real quick?
Yes. So another concern is that the statin drugs can increase blood glucose levels and the risk for diabetes. So once again, we come back to that glucose issue, and glucose being elevated is an easy energy for the cancer cells, and then making body fat. Body fat makes inflammation chemicals that stimulates cancer growth. So the statin drugs, I think we do have to be very careful about and weigh those needs, whether we want to do that or not. And so it's not high on my list. I'm not a medical doctor, so I can't tell a person not to do it. But I like to go more natural when possible.
All right, I think we have a call. Thank you, Keith. Rick, who do we have? We have a caller.
We have a caller. I think your name is Pat. You're on the air.
Pat, make sure your computer or your background is turned off so we don't have interference. But welcome. Okay. You're on the Q&A session. What's your question?
Hi. Am I live?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. First off, thank you for taking my call. And Joe and all of you, thank you for all the work you're doing. I was the question a while ago that said I have a blood cancer. It's actually called polycythemia vera. It's a myeloproliferative disorder. I produce way too many cells. They control it with chemo. I have never done chemo. Lifespan's about 12 years. I'm in my 37th year. Simply by diet and meditation, etc.
Good for
my
you.
concern is I had a spleen infarction that blew out most of my spleen. And the reason I asked this question is because you were talking about the body sloughing off dead cells. About 3 months ago, I took a blood cleanser, and the little spleen I had left swelled up so enormous. I stopped it immediately, and it took weeks to go down. And that could cause more clot or infarction. So do you think, is there a lot of slough off of dead cells when you start working with?
These are great questions for our clinicians here. But Joe, do you have any thoughts?
I do not.
All right. Keith or Deanna, did you get the question?
So
I'll refer.
Go ahead, Keith.
Okay. And I have to admit, I'm not sure I'm fully understanding the question. So
I think she's getting a lot of when blood cells are dying off or being cleansed. She's getting a lot of I guess backup or regurgitation into the spleen, And so it's causing issues there. That's my best understanding, I guess, there.
Okay.
Right, because it's only a partial spleen.
So I have to admit that's beyond
Spleen
my
filters dead blood cells.
right. Yes, that's beyond me.
I'm just
That's
wondering
beyond
if
my
there's
area.
one that you earlier in the program you recommended something to help that dead cell process.
Some enzymatic products, perhaps. What, Deanna, do you have any thoughts you want to put out here? I guess we might have lost Deanna for a minute there.
Okay, and I want to say something that someone may want to research. I have a large number of practitioners when they have patients going through chemotherapy where you have a large amount of die-off, you combine that maybe with the use of fenbendazole, and then maybe you're even taking some natural supplements that maybe create that perfect storm for what they call tumor lysing syndrome, the die-off and how it affects the liver and congests the liver with a lot of people. I do not know, I'm not a medical doctor. A lot of people utilize coffee enemas to be able to very effectively clear this die-off, these dead cells. And they've been doing these for decades and decades and decades in integrative functional medicine, as well as in, practitioners that are the ones that are, just wildcrafting herb type people and stuff. So you might look up coffee enema. Only thing I could say about that is organic coffee. There's a couple of companies out there. The one out of Canada is the best, the oldest, the most reliable with all the gear. So it's something you may want to investigate on your own. If Deanna's back, she could potentially weigh in on that idea as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I am. Thank you about that.
Diana, do you have any
And
thoughts?
yeah,
Doesn't look like she's
coffee
back yet,
enemas.
maybe.
She's there.
Can you guys hear me?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, yes, coffee enemas is one of the things that that I do use. Thank you for that, Josh. And
Yum.
then enzymes. Can you guys can hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you perfectly, Deanna.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So, coffee enemas, enzymes. There are binders. Like charcoal and zeolites. So there are ways to bind toxins in your gut and keep them going through. And if coffee enemas, enzymes aren't working, if binders aren't working, you really need to work with an integrative doctor. But those are some ideas for things that you could start with.
And I would suggest strongly getting with a good functional doctor or clinical nutritionist like Keith or Deanna. They can really help you and individualize a program.
Okay,
Yes.
terrific. Thank you so much, all
Of course.
of you. I
Thank you for
appreciate it.
calling.
All
And,
right.
and before our next call, once again, prevailovercancer.com. That's how you reach Keith Bishop. And then Dr. Deanna Wyndham, wholehumanlife.com, whole spelled WHOLE. Rick, we've got another caller.
Yes,
Hello.
we do. Stand by. Caller, you're on the air now.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for joining the question and answer session. What's your name and what's your question?
Thank you. I was diagnosed with prostate cancer back in September, and I've been following Joe's protocol, and I've been taking all four of the pathways. And my understanding is that I've been following Dr. Seafried from Boston College and his work with Otto Weinberg with regards to cancer being a metabolic disease. And the only fuel that a cancer cell can burn is glucose and glucosamine. I've taken a pretty strong step at stopping the glucose by going on a full ketogenic diet. And I use a Keto Mojo meter to monitor that and take my blood test. My question is there anything available that can pulse block glucosamine, since that's the only other fuel that cancer cells use?
It's a great question. And that's an area of research I haven't delved into. Keith or Deanna?
Yeah, I think I was hoping you had something, Keith. I'm aware that there's ongoing research in this area, but I do not believe that anything has, to my knowledge, I'm not aware of anything that has been found yet. I am aware of ongoing research. Keith, do you know anything? Can't hear you.
Keith. All right. Well, we'll have to join later.
You know,
I would. Oh, go ahead.
well, we can't forget that the key pathway that fenbendazole is working on is interrupting the cancer cell's ability to metabolize glucose.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
And
that's
so I think the
Right.
fenben is the most important thing there.
and there's two other ingredients. Pathway 3, which has the berberine in there, that is agnostic of that's the AMPK pathway, which I'm going to hazard a guess is also potentially the similar to what glucosamine's pathway is, and fermented wheat germ extract. Avamar might be an interesting addition. Again, those are avenues of research to go into. I don't think we have a definitive answer to yet, but thank you for your question. Did you have anything else to chime in on?
Yeah, I had one more question. I had terrific success with Joe's protocol. My PSA went from 43 down to 29 in a question of 6 weeks.
That's great.
And I'm anticipating a further drop. The other question I have is, during this procedure, should I expect an enlarged prostate to decline in size?
Potentially. There are other things that can cause an enlarged prostate besides cancer. Just benign prostate hypertrophy is the most common cause. And so while treating the cancer may help to decrease the size of the prostate, not necessarily so.
They could be linked, they're not necessarily so. Well, thank you for your call. Let's move on. Rick, did you have? Yep, thank you. And all right, so let's go back into here. There's a very interesting question. I just want to chime on it because it made me giggle a little bit. Jack asked, why a change on the pathway 2 from cysteine to non-cysteine, I assume. Also, I've been hearing that Bill Gates and other billionaires are buying out healthy product companies. Do they affect our company?
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'd be curious to whether Bill Gates is buying it because he thinks it's a good investment or because he wants to kill it. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, so far as we know, Bill Gates does not own anything in Ultra Botanica, nor have we been approached by any billionaires to buy our company or to influence our company.
Privately held.
Right, and we are majority owned by myself and then some other small investors. We are considering maybe doing a what do you call it? What's that public funding thing where you do things?
Crowdfunding.
Maybe doing a crowdfunding round just to give everybody an opportunity to own a piece of us. I think that would be fun. But let's address the question on number 2. The change in number 2 is we were using cysteine as a scaffold as a first product when we introduced Pathway 2. We later became aware that cysteine is implicated pretty seriously as inhibiting ferroptosis, which Jane McClellan talks about a lot. So we decided to take cysteine out of the picture, and the formula, the L-cysteine, was proving to be very, very, very difficult to manufacture. We were losing about half of the batches, and so we decided to go to a different scaffold, in this case brown rice protein, which is a very healthy alternative. It did end up increasing the number of capsules, but it's the same amount of active ingredients. And if anybody has a problem swallowing the capsules, you can open the capsules and mix them with food or water, and they have a very pleasant taste profile.
Yep.
All right, Rick, you have a caller?
Yes, we do. And we'll be there in just a moment. And caller, I think you're on the air now. Maybe?
Yep. Yes, you're on.
This one, yeah. Okay. Too many buttons to push. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
Hi.
turn your your audio down, please.
Yeah.
It's down.
All right, thank you. Welcome to the question and answer session. What's your name and what's your question?
Hey, my name is Judy Campbell. I'm calling a reference to my mom. I went back with her back in October for a colonoscopy. They called me back 15 minutes prior to her procedure finishing, letting me know that they did see something down in her rectal area. Melissa, give me a second, please. And they ended up doing a biopsy. Within 4 days, they called us back at like 7 p.m. to tell us that it did come back positive for colon rectal cancer. At her next appointment I went to with her, they stated that it has, it was at the lower portion of the rectum, and that they would have to move the complete rectum, and then she would need it back. They said we will follow up with a CT scan and an MRI. Following it, they said it spread it to her liver, which they convinced her into doing the chemo treatment, which is the 5-FU and aloxatin, I think that's how you say ELOXATIN. She has the port in and she gets it done bi-weekly, which it stays in for 48 hours. I just got her on the Fenbendazole. I'm trying to find out, is there any other thing that we can do right now, because she's completely losing weight. She's barely able to hold things down. And she's also like losing her taste and still having the side effects of the chemo with the extremely cold sensation in her hands and her feet.
Keith, Deanna, any thoughts?
Yeah, start all the supplements, start a ketogenic diet, start alpha-lipoic acid, and get an integrative doctor.
Which state does your mom live in, dear?
I'm in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. My mom as well. If y'all could refer us to anybody, I will be on board for everything. I went and got the multi-pack of the fenben, which she's been taking. We also tried to do like burdock root and soursop to try to pull some of those toxins out, let it bind to it. But I don't want to lose my SHIT, but I'm really, trying to save my mom.
Yeah, sure. And so Joe has recommendations on his blog for supplementation under the protocol tab, and we would recommend that you get with him on that. And then I would suggest getting with Keith Bishop. Keith, am I correct? Is your first appointment or your first session with you is that for free, or is there a charge for the first consult? I think we still lost Keith.
He's not there. So anyway, dear, write down these two resources. Prevail Over Cancer, retired pharmacist, clinical nutrition, Keith Bishop. We've known him for years. He's a wealth of information and specializes in this. That's Prevail, Prevail, overcancer.com. And then Dr. Deanna Wyndham recommends a resource for finding an integrative or functional oncologist in your area, and that website is called People for Cancer, I believe. It's either
People
.com.
Against Cancer.
People Against Cancer. Thank you.
Not for cancer.
People Against Cancer. Okay.
There is hope, and we wish you well in the journey. I think there are things you can do if you follow these great people's suggestions. We'll pray that you find solutions for your mom.
Yes, definitely. I appreciate it so much. And I've been tuned in. I actually tried some of the remedies for myself for my spinal cancer, which is in my presacrum. I've been doing fine. I stopped doing radiation over 9 years ago. I got the diagnosis when I was 9 months pregnant. My daughter just turned 9 on the 17th of December. So my doctor that I actually seen is the one that actually gave my mom the diagnosis. They just try to instill that fear tactic into you. I'm trying to give my mom as much motivation as possible, but watching her lose the weight and, the losing of the taste and not being able to eat, it's a hard pill to swallow. But I will continue to follow you guys. Do you guys think it's best that I also put my mom on the protocols 1, 2, 3, and 4 as well?
Well, Adam, you need to talk to her about Onco 2 and her chemo schedule.
Yeah, so definitely on the pathway products. And pathway 2 cannot be taken on the days that your mom would be on chemo, the day before, day of, and day after. But get with a good functional doctor. And also, if your mom is on Medicare or Social Security, which it sounds like she is, we have just for everybody that's listening, we have significant discount. Yeah, if you're on disability or on Social Security. All you need to do is call in and ask to get evaluated, and we can put you on some significant discounts. And in some cases, even we have ways to almost donate product for free if the case merits it. So, but just get with us at Ultra Botanica, and we can work with you.
I definitely will. She'll be turning 70 on the 17th. It's a blessing to still have her here. And this is actually her second bout with cancer. She beat cervical cancer. when
Wow.
we were younger back in the 80s. And now here we go again. So I completely have faith. I will completely follow the protocol that you guys are informing us in reference to. I will reach out to every number and website that you guys have given us. I just want to say thank you to all of y'all for what y'all are doing. Y'all are giving us positive feedback. Y'all actually instilling hope back into us. I really thank y'all dearly with all my heart, and I pray that the Most High continuously bless all of y'all and all that y'all do, because a lot of people are scared to speak up, but I'm glad that you guys are speaking up and trying to help as many people as possible. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so
We're
much.
grateful. Thank you.
All right. Do we have another caller, Rick?
Yes,
All right,
we
guys,
do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let's
And
see if
I
we can
think we're in
get-
the home stretch here. We've got
We
about
got
maybe
12
10 minutes left.
Yep, 10 minutes left.
That's, and here we go. And I think you're on the air now.
Yep. Hey, caller, what's your name? And
Hello.
welcome to the Q&A session. What's your question?
Thank you. My name is Steve Venable. I live in Royal Oak, Michigan, and want to thank everybody for the protocol that you have.
Thank you.
And I've been doing fenbendazole for about a year, a little over a year. I had bladder cancer in July of 22, and the luck would have it, I had a very aggressive doctor. And so from the time I discovered I had a problem with the bleeding, and 17 days later, I had my surgery and chemo. And then a month later, I started BCG.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did 12 BCG treatments. And I've been cancer-free thus far. And I started the fenbendazole, I'd say about a year ago from November.
Mm-hmm.
And I still I take that and a multitude of other naturopathic supplements. And I wanted to ask you about, has there been any, I know there's been some question about vitamin E, but I was also interested in the tocotrienol side of the vitamin E, and what your opinion was on the purified tocotrienol from the annetto plant. If you think that might be a applicable supplement along with the fenbendazole.
Is this all in relation to staying in remission? Is that the general question?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Well, my original protocol 7 years ago was just that. But I had so many questions and so many other issues that could come up as contradictory that I eliminated it from the protocol just because of confusion. And maybe our oncologist here can help answer that. I took it out for the reason of it was just too complex of an issue to be broad, if that makes any sense.
Well, have you
any feedback?
What do you think of?
Deanna, is there any feedback you might have, because this tocotrienol issue? I know that Joe, I think you're referencing that people taking tocotrienols, there could be some contraindications among a subset of people, right? And
Right.
consequently, you got just bombarded with questions,
Right.
and you didn't want to recommend anything that might harm a subset of people.
Right.
Okay. So, Deanna, if you happen to be there, any ideas on the tocotrienol, this gentleman's question related to staying in remission and that being something that he should add to his tool chest?
A broad spectrum or full spectrum tocotrienol is something that I often have people on as maintenance. Definitely, I tend to treat people on a case by case basis, and everybody's very individual.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I
but
can't
that
hear
is
anything.
There will be a link posted at the top of Joe's blog that will have this entire thing recorded. If for some reason you're not hearing Deanna, caller, then you'll be able to go ahead and go back and reference this, because she is talking. We're hearing her here.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Sure.
I've been
But
taking Boswellia and French grape seed extract as anti-inflammatories, and I wanted the opinion of Boswellia or frankincense as supportive, if that's a supportive supplement do you think for the protocol?
They're
Adam,
so supportive that they're in the protocol.
Yeah, Boswellia is in pathway 1 and in pathway 2. We use the proprietary fractions of the essential oils that have been studied specifically in cancer, coming from the research of H.K. Lin from decades of research on frankincense essential oils and cancer. And specifically, we're using cultivars of frankincense that have never been studied in cancer that we're finding are just amazing. And we're depleting specific fractions out of the essential oils that cause stomach upset, like the monoterpenes that are just not helpful in any respect. And then we use the boswellic salts, the boswellic acids, which are the other component of frankincense in pathway 2. So the combination of pathway 1, you get the essential oils, and then pathway 2, you get the boswellic acids, which technically are terpenes also, but who wants to be a chemist today? So you're getting all the best worlds of Boswellia in pathways 1 and 2.
Correct.
All right.
And I think we have another caller.
Do we have another
just have
call?
time for
Yes,
one
we
more.
do. We
Thank you
have
so much
time
for calling.
Here is our last caller of the
Well, maybe
show.
one more after this, but go ahead.
Maybe, depends. Should be on the air now.
Go ahead, caller. Welcome to the Q&A session. Can you please give us your name and your question?
And turn down your
Background
device
volume.
there.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is DJ.
Hey, DJ.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear.
All right, thank you. Yeah. So this is a situation for my dad. He's 80 years old. He's been diagnosed with bile duct cancer. It's one of the rare, very aggressive ones, I was told. And since last Jan, that's when we found out, I've been putting him on all the 4 pathways. I started with 1 dose, the regular 222 mg dose. And since then, I've increased his dosage to like 4 times the dosage. He's taking double of that in the morning, double of that in the evening, along with all the other 3 protocols. But we're not seeing any improvements in his tumors or his health. And lately, it's really, the tumor size has gone up. It's kind of spreading. He doesn't feel like eating. He kind of feels very, mouth is no taste with any food. It's kind of going very south from here.
How's his diet? Do you mind me asking? What is it? Is he eating a ketogenic, or does he have a lot of carbohydrates in his diet?
He's eating meat and carbs. He's not following one particular diet, really. I was looking into metabolic diet recently, but I have not made him jump on that.
Yeah, I know it's hard just speaking anecdotally when somebody's losing weight to think about even doing a ketogenic approach. But Joe, do you have any comments, or do you want to pass this over to Deanna and Keith?
I think Deanna and Keith are better equipped.
Now, I never heard fenbendazole mentioned. So
Well, is he taking fenbendazole?
I heard him talk about the pathways. I just wanted to make sure
I think he's taking
that was
fenbendazole.
included as well. Okay.
Yeah, it is, but I'm giving 4 times the dosage recommended. I'm giving
Okay.
888 milligrams per day. now.
Wow. Okay. Go ahead, Keith, Deanna. Are you guys on? We'd love to hear your comments.
I'd definitely go to a ketogenic diet, like really right away. And Keith is really the expert on that, and you can consult with him
Deanna, I think you're
online.
speaking, but I can't hear you.
Yeah, she's saying that a ketogenic diet is what she would recommends.
Mandatory, and she said
mandatorily
that
on
Keith
this.
Bishop is who was on the call earlier. You can go to his website, prevailovercancer.com, DJ, and you can find a way to connect with him, and there's some very good information there.
Yeah,
So
I think
that's
that
a direction to go.
We're not doctors here. I mean, on our end, we can't tell you what the problem is, but I'm guessing based upon everything you're saying, it is the fact that you are keeping carbohydrates in his diet. We would recommend getting with Keith Bishop at prevailovercancer.com, just like Josh was saying, and I think you will find a path for your dad to get on a diet that might turn this around.
Thank you. I mean, I also heard you guys say some other particular pancreatic cancer. It took more than 18 months for it to show some results.
Yeah, it
Is
put
it
it.
one of those cancers?
Joe would mention that he put it into stasis for a long time.
Yeah, so the 7 cases I know about, which were all 4th stage pancreatic go home and get your affairs in order. They all took 18 months to, in one case, 20 months. But in that 18-month period, it was keeping it at bay and allowing them to live a normal lifestyle.
Yep.
Yeah, unfortunately, this one is not helping. The tumor size not coming down or any of those things.
Yeah, tried. I mean, I think again, based upon a lot of research, cancer is primarily a metabolic disorder. So getting the metabolic profile correct could be the key for your dad turning around. And it might be the hardest thing to do because changing somebody's diet sometimes is like turning a ship in the ocean.
Can we do the Fenben labs?
And
yeah, we can. I think we have time for one more.
Yeah, Betty is on the line, and she's
and then we
been
have, and then you
holding,
want
and
to make
she'll be the last caller. And
All
Betty, I
right.
think you're on.
Betty, thank you for joining us. Betty?
Oh, thank you so much. I just did barely scoot in after getting disconnected. Okay, my question regards my husband. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Ma'am.
Okay, my husband recently has been treated surgically and with proton therapy at MD Anderson for invasive squamous cell cancer on his face. It was HPV negative being on his face. So I just never hear anything or read anything on the Facebook page or the blog about success with that type of cancer. I realize we have nothing to lose, and I just wanted to know if there had been any cases with that. And I was glad to hear Joe say that he should stay on the therapeutic dose of the Fenben and the protocol, not just go to maintenance, even though we, are certainly hoping there will be no evidence of disease.
Yeah, I would say 7 days a week indefinitely until you know you're out of the woods.
Okay. Have you had? I mean, I know there's nothing to lose, but are you familiar with any cases of this that
I'm not.
responded to
I'm
it?
not, but I am
Okay.
100% certain that it's cancer subtype agnostic, and there's nothing to lose, and there's plenty of upside.
Okay, and I'm also glad to hear you talk about no adverse effects on the liver at this dosage, because he had just been doing the 222 milligrams once a day. I think we may have upped it some early on, maybe before surgery.
I'm sorry, I missed the gist of the question. What was it again? I'm sorry. Betty, what was the...
the gist of the question was if there were any success stories with squamous cell cancer that you knew of, but just then I was talking about...
there hasn't been any cancer that Joe hasn't seen a response. I can't say definitively from our perspective, but I would strongly suggest adding Keith and or Deanna to your husband's medical team, because they're going to be able to give you much specific medical advice that reads into your husband's specific medical history, the drugs he's taken, his medical background, and give you advice that's very specific to his individual case.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I just coincidentally, when he does get lab work done, they typically have not been testing for the liver enzymes. So I guess I will either have to specifically ask for that if that's indicated, or
not worry about it. Because
I wouldn't worry about it.
Yep.
That's great. I like hearing that very much.
All right, Betty, thank you for calling. All right,
Yeah.
Joe, you wanted to close us out with some thoughts here?
Yeah, there were several questions, and I'm going to open up a can of worms here probably. Several questions about a company called Fenben Labs. That lady has used me to build an entire business around a fenbendazole replacement, and she doesn't like me, and the feeling is mutual, because I've asked her repeatedly to show me where she's being manufacturing, and is it CMGP qualified manufacturing. And we've also sent her product off for lab analysis, and I just don't believe in her product. And it's affecting her livelihood because she's made a business out of following me. But we started this whole process at the beginning saying if it's not made by Merck, I wouldn't take it. And I stand by that.
from a regulatory perspective, fenbendazole doesn't have any legal standing to be sold as anything except for a product for dogs or cattle or goats or animals. Fenbendazole doesn't have any legal basis to be sold in the United States except as that. So I would really question the legal basis under which Fenben Labs is selling anything here in the United States.
100% of her customers are humans, and it's not approved for human use. So there you go.
Right. I mean, and Joe is recommending fenbendazole, but obviously, Joe, you're recommending the Merck product because Merck is a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah, and even more so, we know exactly where it's formulated, where it's made, and how it's made, and it's safe. And, rule number one of medicine is don't make it worse. And I really I can't say that about products that aren't made the right way and by the right company.
Yeah, we specifically don't offer a Fenben product ourselves because we are a company that we make nutritional supplements, and fenbendazole is a drug product, and we really don't have any legal basis for selling a fenbendazole product ourselves.
Hey, thanks everyone for joining us today for Joe Tippens live Q&A on Facebook. Guess what? You'll be able to find the link to the broadcast probably later today. Adam, we can maybe get that up, or tomorrow?
Yeah, it'll be up tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Okay. We'll get that there, so you can go to mycancerstory.rocks, Joe's blog. You'll be able to find past FAQs, but I think this was a very engaging and comprehensive one, Joe and Adam. Thanks so much for that. You want to learn more about Ultra Botanica, just go to ultratoday.com. You can learn about our technologies there. And then if you want to reach out to Keith Bishop, prevailovercancer.com. You want to reach out to Dr. Deanna Wyndham, wholehumanlife.com, WHOLE, humanlife.com. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.